The Purveyor of Curiosities is a very interesting vendor in Diablo 4 because this is where you actually go to be able to gamble for gear, but you're going to have to get your hands on a special currency called Obols before they're willing to trade with you. Now, just as a quick disclaimer, up top, everything that I'm going to be talking about is from the press release beta version of Diablo 4, where we're only able to play up to level 1 to 25 in the first act in the first area of the game. Because of that, I'm only able to assume certain things based off of the information that we get from the world tier statue in Kiovishat, as well as the results that we actually got from gambling while in that play. All of the pictures and video footage that you're going to be seeing is from the press release kit. None of this was taken in the game since we weren't allowed to record. Now that we have that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about the Purveyor and what you need to know. So first, let's talk about what you can gamble. Opening up the screen on any character will show you a list of all of the item types that character can use. So on the Sorceress, you were able to gamble for wands, focuses, two-handed staves. On the Barbarian, you were able to gamble for one-handed and two-handed slashing, as well as one-handed and two-handed blunt weapons, and two-handed axes. On the Rogue, the only character who was able to use a bow or crossbow, you were able to gamble for those as well. What every class has in common is the fact that you can gamble for a helmet, chest, gloves, pants, boots, jewelry, etc. And it looks like you can theoretically get any rarity of item in the game. This includes common, magic, rare, and legendary. The only thing that I can't confirm is whether or not you're able to gamble unique items. Since, regardless of the fact that I tried my damnedest, I wasn't able to farm enough Obols in the week that we had to play to actually prove that you couldn't get a unique item. On top of that, since we know that there are things like ancestral and sacred upgraded gear pieces, I can only assume that after you unlock higher world tiers, you'll be able to gamble those as well. Although at what rate or rarity will you be able to is still yet to be decided. Because of this, a curiosity vendor is a great place to be able to go and farm for potential rare or legendary pieces so that you can either imprint an aspect that you already want to use or hopefully extract an aspect that you've been looking for. But now let's talk about Obols, the currency that you need to get your hands on to actually be able to purchase at the Purveyor. Obols seem to be a pretty rare currency. You actually can only ever have a maximum of 1,000 of them in your inventory at a given time. So this means that if you're ever at over 1,000 and some drop, you won't be able to pick them up. So while it's probably a good idea to save up your Obols, since it looks like the gear that you get is also related to your character level. The higher level you are, the higher item power the gear was. You're probably going to hit more than 1,000 Obols before you hit max level. There were 4 different places that we can confirm Obols did drop from, and I can only assume that there are going to be more places or more events depending on what they end up doing in places like the Nightmare Dungeon, or even potentially in a PvP zone. It's hard to say. There were cursed chests as well as cursed shrines. Completing these events inside of dungeons get you a big chest as a reward. And when you were finishing those, especially with Mastery, we noticed that Obols were dropping. In addition to that, many of the quests or side quests that you do actually give you a cache of rewards. Dropping from these, you are also able to get some Obols. Local events in the open world also seem to drop Obols out of the chests that you get from them from completing them. These were called Gathering Legion in the beta, and there were these big events where you had to kill a ton of monsters and fight a bunch of mini bosses, and at the end they dropped a bunch of chests as well, where Obols were one of the options for rewards. Because of the scarcity or rarity of Obols as a whole, it looks like this is going to be a reward for people who are willing to grind out in the open world or special events. As another quick disclaimer, the numbers that we were able to transcribe from the press release beta are almost certainly going to change at some point, but this is just to give you a quick idea of what it cost us to be able to gamble when we were playing in that beta build. You'll see that more valuable gear pieces like weapons and jewelry tend to cost more than your armor pieces do, with two-handed weapons costing more than one-handed weapons, but not costing twice as much as a one-handed weapon. So the particular economy of what is the best thing to gamble is probably going to be based off your character and what particular build you're going for. The last thing that was very interesting that we didn't really get our hands on what it meant in the game were the Whispering Keys. Whispering Keys had a tooltip that said that they unlock a silent chest, so I assume this is some type of secret chest that you can find out in the world that you need to have one of these keys to be able to open. Since this takes your gambling currency to have a chance at opening one of these chests, that being a bit more of a gamble, we can only assume that those chests are probably going to be higher value or potentially drop multiple items to make up for the fact that you might never find one. The interesting bit about the Purveyor of Curiosities is that because gambling in this way can get you access to legendary items, I assume the best way to make the most use out of your Obols is going to be gambling for particular item slots. The reason why that is because each aspect falls into a certain type of aspect. You have defensive, offensive, mobility, resource, and utility, and each one of these can only spawn on a particular item piece. So let's say I'm looking for something that most commonly shows up on a weapon. I could probably just buy whatever the cheapest version of a weapon that could potentially have that aspect on it, and then roll that as many times as possible for a chance of hitting the legendary aspect that I'm looking for. After that, being able to gamble for a gear slot that you want to be able to craft onto, but you don't have a good base yet, you can keep hitting something like your gloves or your boots, looking for the perfect rare item to then be able to put a legendary aspect that you've extracted onto, and then enchant to reroll one of the stats. In this way, gambling is probably going to be relevant throughout the entire progression of your character, and it's something that you're definitely going to want to keep your eye on how many Obols you have so you don't end up leaving any in the trash. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this explains the Purveyor of Curiosities and what gambling is going to look like in Diablo 4 for you. Consider following and subscribing to the channel for more Diablo 4 content as we get closer and closer to the release date. Oh, and because this video ended up being a little bit shorter than I expected it to be, let me just go ahead and throw in some unedited press kit B-roll so you can go ahead and check out just some more awesome Diablo 4 video game footage. Thanks again for watching.